दोस्तों, आप सब कैसे हो दोस्तों? नमस्ते, ट्रस्ट लैग एंड माय नेम इज़ सोनम। एंड तो आज हम आपके लिए बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग एक रिएक्शन का वीडियो है। वैसे भी है ना, ये वीडियो है SFF के ऊपर ही था, राइट? तो वैसे हमने पहले भी बहुत सारा SFF के ऊपर रिएक्ट कर चुका है और बहुत लोगों ने पसंद भी किया था और मुझे भी अच्छा लग रहा है। और वैसे भी मुझे SF के ऊपर रिएक्ट करना थोड़ा बहुत अच्छा भी लगता है और थोड़ा प्राउड भी फील होता है। क्यों होता है ये सब आपको पता होगा। और एक चीज़ ये है कि हमने पहले बहुत वीडियो के ऊपर रिएक्ट किया था, SFF की वीडियो के ऊपर। तो फिर भी बहुत लोगों ने पूछ रहा है कि SFF के ऊपर करो करो करके, राइट? तो मैंने इंटरनेट में चेक किया था, ज़्यादा SF के ऊपर नहीं मिला था। लेकिन एक इंस्टाग्राम में है ना, एक वायरल वीडियो मैंने देखा था, वो भी SFF के ऊपर था, राइट? तो ये वीडियो है ना, एनिमेटेड था, राइट? एनिमेशन था, राइट? तो एनिमेशन का वीडियो है और मतलब बहुत अच्छे वीडियो है एनिमेशन की ना। वैसे भी एनिमेशन का तो बहुत अच्छा लगता है क्योंकि हम विजुअल भी मतलब देख सकता है और वो भी कार्टून की तरफ, इट्स अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग वीडियो। और इसमें ना हमें मतलब सीखने के लिए बहुत कुछ चीज़ें मिलेगा। SFF की क्या होता है, किस चीज़ का होता है, कब बनाया है और क्यों बनाया है करके, राइट? तो ये सब देखने के लिए बहुत मज़ा आएगा। तो मैं ज़्यादा नहीं बोलूँगा, विदाउट वेस्टिंग मच टाइम, लेट्स गेट इनटू द वीडियो। 3, 2, 1।
Night of August 30th, 2020, somewhere along the ridge line south of Pangong Lake, line of actual control. Special forces from the Indian side of the LAC were on a top secret mission to secure key mountain ridges from where they could keep an eye on Chinese activity. When suddenly, landmines laid by the Chinese way back in the 1962 war exploded, killing a soldier and injuring another. Surely the Chinese heard the explosion in the middle of the night and were alerted. But by then, they were too late. Indian troops had taken the crucial mountaintops in helmet, Kala Top, Camel's Back, Gurung Hill and Rekvinla in the Chushul sector, securing a key advantage. So incensed were the Chinese that in an unusual move, at 2 a.m. China time, CCCP's mouthpiece Global Times issued a statement on its website. Chinese troops forced to take countermeasures against Indian military provocation. But the next morning's press statement by the Indian Army, no Indian soldier died in last night's victorious mission. Technically, they were right. The trooper who died was a 51-year-old Tibetan refugee, Nyama Tenzing, of the 7 Vikas Battalion. Nyama was not an Indian passport holder and proudly carried his Tibetan identity card, but he was nonetheless given a guard of honor by the Indian Army in full public view. The several Vikas battalions form part of India's until now secret paramilitary Special Frontier Force or SFF, comprising of expert mountaineering refugees from Tibet, capable of operating at high altitude terrain along India's mountainous borders, especially to counter Chinese hostility. General Kottadera Sumaya Thimaya, head of the Indian Army between May 1957 and 61, first mooted the idea of raising a specialized force of this kind. Initially, he did not find any support from the then Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru nor Defence Minister Krishna Menon. But soon realizing the lack of high-altitude forces in India's impending defeat in the 1962 border war against China, Nehru changed his mind. We have to arm India's Tibetan refugee community and aid their insurgency inside Tibet. It is perhaps no coincidence that SFF's raising day, November 14th, is Jawaharlal Nehru's birthday, just a week before the Chinese unilaterally announced a ceasefire. B.N. Malik, then director of the Intelligence Bureau, got the American CIA to supply modern arms to the force. The plan hatched by the CIA and the Indian Army was to train recruits for 6 months in mountain warfare and then move them into Tibet to fight the Chinese. Leaders of Chushi Gangrok, a Tibetan guerrilla movement fighting for independence against the Chinese in Tibet since 1956, were contacted for the SFF's recruitment drive. For Tibetans, it was an opportunity to maintain a legitimate military unit against China. After being driven out of their homeland by the occupying Chinese in October 1950. My parents showed large tracts of farmland, but the Chinese soldiers looted everything. My whole family died in Chinese captivity. I managed to flee to India. 7,000 Tibetan refugees joined the SFF, whose base was set up in the hilly town of Chakrata in the North Indian state of Uttarakhand, home to a large Tibetan refugee population. To qualify for the Special Frontier Force, each recruit needed to pass a grueling test at the rock climbing school in Chakrata. while paratroopers inspired by the US Army Special Forces trained at Saraswat and Charbatia air bases. The CIA instructed the group in guerrilla warfare tactics and provided them with M1 and M2 light submachine guns. Ranks were introduced which were uniquely non-military, and commanders were instead given the title of political leader. By late 1963, Malik organized the Tibetans into 7 Vikas battalions of 800 soldiers each. And in 1964, the SFF was deployed for the first time on India's border with Tibet. When intelligence reports indicated that China tested a nuclear bomb at Lop Nor near Xinjiang on October 16, 1964, RAW and CIA mounted a joint operation with celebrated India climber MS Kohli, along with operatives of SFF and CIA, most notably Jim Ryan, a veteran stalled pilot. After several failed attempts, an electronic intelligence device, ELINT, was successfully placed in 1967 at Nanda Devi, India's second highest mountain. The transceiver, powered by a plutonium battery, could detect and report data on any nuclear test carried out by China. Just months later, in October 1967, the Chinese began testing an ICBM capable of reaching targets 6,000 miles away. That meant that their missiles could reach India from any location in China. So SFF mountaineers went off on one more mission, and in December 1969 successfully placed a gas-powered device on an undisclosed mountain, supposedly in Chinese-controlled areas. All this covert warfare was fine, but the Tibetans were eagerly awaiting for actual combat with the Chinese, and reportedly kept crossing over the border into Tibet in unsanctioned missions, leading to a government decision to keep them away from the LAC. Finally, they got a chance to fight, but it was against the West Pakistan Army in what is now known as Bangladesh. After anti-West Pakistan Sheikh Mujibur Rahman of the Awami League swept elections in East Pakistan in December 1970, West Pakistan, fearing a civil war, sent in its army who began to crack down heavily on the locals, killing tens of thousands and pouring millions of refugees into India. SSF began training these Bangladeshi Bengalis to become fighters. Since West Pakistan was an ally of the US and there would be no assistance forthcoming from Washington, American M1 and M2 submachine guns were now replaced with Bulgarian AK-47s. 3,000 soldiers of the SSF Tibetan regiment under the cover of Indian-sponsored Bangladeshi militia Mukti Bahini deployed their guerrilla training skills in the marshy and rugged terrain of the Chittagong Hill Tracts in late October 1971. By the time India entered the war in support of East Pakistan on December 3, 1971, the SFF and Mukti Bahini had already caused enough damage to West Pakistan's militarily important naval port base in Chittagong, crucial for Pakistani reinforcements. Brigadier Sujan Singh Uban in his book calls them the Phantom of Chittagong. 13 days later, West Pakistan surrendered to India and Bangladesh won independence. But the 56 Tibetan men who lost their life and the 190 that were injured were largely forgotten. The Indian officers of the SFF received gallantry awards, but Tibetans were given cash since it was supposed to be an unofficial mission. However, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi was believed to have credited the SFF in private correspondences with soldiers. A memorial in Chakrata was built for the victims of 1971 and other operations till date. The SFF was also reported to have been used in combating communal riots in the mid-1970s, as well as in counter-insurgency in Operation Blue Star to clear up militants taking refuge in the Golden Temple in 1984. The same year, they also played a crucial role in taking control of the Siachen Glacier. In the 1999 Kargil War, they scaled vertical ridge lines in Khalubar, Batalik and .5500 subsector Hani, securing rope lines for Indian Army soldiers to climb up and capture the peaks. The SFF is also known as Establishment 22 or just 22 due to its first Inspector General, Major General Sujan Singh Uban, who commanded the 22nd Mountain Division as an artillery officer in Europe during World War II. Battalions of SFF have their own regimental flag, insignia and rank structure as they are not officially part of the Indian Army. They also include women recruits and officers for specialized operations as well as in signal and medical companies. Today, the Special Frontier Force has around 10,000 soldiers. Of these, 6,000 are Tibetan refugees. Nepali Gurkhas and hill tribesmen have been added to their ranks over the years. Since 2009, there has been some hike in salaries and pension benefits of SFF soldiers, but they are still not on par with those in the Indian Army. Now, once again, they have proved their worth by capturing the ridges in Chushul sector. They have negated the advantage China had when they illegally occupied 8 kilometers of area between Finger 8 and 4 on Pangang Tso that China had taken in a sudden operation in April 2020, unilaterally altering the LAC. But the SFF skills in mountain warfare have now given India a solid bargaining chip with which they can force the Chinese to retreat to their part of the LAC. Due to the extreme geopolitical sensitivity of an armed Tibetan volunteer force on Indian soil, Indian governments never acknowledged the SFF's existence. Even army veterans from the unit refused to speak on record.
We have signed a bond of secrecy with the Indian Army.
For Tibetans, the SFF has been a source of employment, but the relative secrecy over the battalion has robbed them of recognition for their service. Kept in the shadows for so long, maybe this operation will give them the credit they deserve for loyally serving India for so many years. Even though their dream to drive China out of Tibet still remains distant,
that's our dream.
At least from the heights of Ladakh that they currently occupy, they have a bird's eye view of their homeland. Bisbo's Limerick. India's special forces consist of Tibetan mountaineers who help negate the advantage on China's frontiers. They finally battled the foe that drove them from their home, gaining recognition that till now were in arrears.
Okay, वीडियो खत्म हो गया.
Subscribe to Bisbo and
Bisbo,
click
channel
on the
का नाम
bell
Bisbo
icon
है.
to get notified whenever Bisbo releases a new
Bisbo तो
video.
आपको पता होगा.
Sources of all our
ये हमारा
information is
टिबेटन
listed
कम्युनिटी
in
में
the
भी है ना,
video
थोड़ा सा
description
वायरल चल
section.
रहा था ये वीडियो. तो दोस्तों वीडियो ख़त्म हो चुका है. वीडियो वैसे अच्छा है, राइट. तो वीडियो स्टार्ट मतलब मैं पहले है ना आई वांट टू सिंग अ सॉन्ग. ये SFF का ये है एंथम है, आप एंथम बोल सकते हैं, लेकिन फिर भी मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगता है, राइट. इसमें कुछ लिरिक्स मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगता है एंड बहुत सही भी है, बहुत करेक्ट भी है, राइट, एंड टू द पॉइंट भी है, राइट. तो ये गाना ये है कि सॉन्ग का नाम है हम है विकासी. आप लोगों ने सुना होगा, बहुत लोगों ने. और हमने पहले वीडियो में भी इसी के ऊपर ही बना था हमने, राइट. एक रिमिक्स जैसा एक सॉन्ग था, इसमें हमने एक वीडियो भी बना चुका है. तो गाना कुछ ऐसे ही है. मेरे आवाज़ बिल्कुल भी मतलब आवाज़ इतना अच्छा नहीं है, और वैसे भी मेरे ना गलत थोड़ा सा प्रॉब्लम था, इसलिए तो फिर भी मैं गा रहा हूँ. ओके, तो लिरिक्स कुछ ऐसे ही था. करगी है या बांग्लादेश, हिम्मत कभी निहारेंगे, फिर भी भारत ने हम अपनों की तरफ संभाला है. दूसरा पैराग्राफ, सॉरी, दूसरा पैराग्राफ. छीनी हमसे छीन की थी पर घर से हमें निकाला है, फिर भी भारत ने हम अपनों की तरफ संभाला है. गाना कुछ ऐसे ही था, लेकिन ये गाना है ना मतलब इतना मुझे नहीं आता है, फिर भी ना ये गाना अभी जो जितना मैंने गाया है ये है ना बहुत टू द पॉइंट एंड मीनिंगफुल, और इट्स टोटली फैक्ट है ना, ये यही था सच, राइट. तो गाना हो चुका है. और वैसे आपने वीडियो में देखा होगा कि टिबेटन को पहले ऐसे में ना ऑलमोस्ट 100% टिबेटन ही था, और कुछ लड़की भी है. अगर जितना लड़की सब ना टिबेटन ही है, लड़की है ना, अभी भी लड़की जितना भी है सब टिबेटन है. और वहाँ में ट्रेनिंग आपको पता होगा, पैराट्रूपर बनना ही पड़ेगा, ये भी आपको पता होगा, क्योंकि वहाँ पे पैरा जंपिंग ये सब है ना, ये तो करना ही है. देयर इज़ नो एनी क्या बोलो, आप डिनाई नहीं कर सकते, आपको करना ही है, राइट. अगर ये नहीं करेगा तो आपको SF में नहीं बैठ सकते आपको, है ना. यू शुड गो होम. ऐसे ही था. तो वहाँ पे सब कुछ है ना पैराट्रूपर्स ही है, जितना भी आर्मी है सब कुछ पैराट्रूपर है, सब वेल ट्रेंड है. और आपने देखा होगा पहले है ना USA से हमको ट्रेनिंग दिया है. इसके बाद इंडिया ने हमें इतना अच्छा अपग्रेडेड वेपन्स भी है, तो हमें क्या चाहिए. और आपने पहले देखा होगा कि पहले हम बांग्लादेश, करगिल वार, सियाचिन, इस सब में हमने पार्टिसिपेट किया है, राइट. उसी टाइम में देखो इनके पास इतना हथियारी, क्लोथ्स जितना मतलब वेपन इतना भी सही नहीं था, फिर भी उन लोगों ने लड़ाई मतलब पार्टिसिपेट किया और जीत के आया था. तो आजकल देखो फिर आजकल तो सब कुछ है, सब आपको कब पहनने का कपड़ा इतना मोटा मोटा मिलता है, जूता भी इतना मोटा मोटा मिलता है, और जूता भी अलग अलग है ना, माउंटेन के लिए ये जूता है, फॉरेस्ट के लिए ये बूट है करके, ये बहुत अच्छा है। और इसी तरफ इंडिया ने हमें मदद किया है। एक तरफ से देखिएगा तो इंडिया ने हमें बहुत अच्छे मदद किया है, राइट, यानी मदद भी किया है, और ये बहुत अच्छी चीज़ है। और अगर ये भी सैलरी भी बोल रही थी, हाँ पहले थोड़ा कम मिलता होगा, लेकिन सैलरी के बारे में इतना नहीं पता है, लेकिन फिर भी अभी ठीक ठाक मिल रहा है, अच्छा है। हाँ, इंडियन आर्मी से थोड़ा कम मिलता है, ये तो अंडरस्टैंडेबल है ना, ऑब्वियसली वी आर रिफ्यूजी, इसीलिए थोड़ा कम मिलता होगा, ये भी अच्छा है, लाइक, लेकिन मिलता है ऑब्वियसली। अगर आपने कुछ अच्छा ही किया हो तो आपको कैश प्राइस भी मिलता होगा, लेकिन इन लोगों है ना बैच वगैरह नहीं देता होगा, ऐसे ही पब्लिक में इतना नाम नहीं देता होगा, क्योंकि ये बहुत सीक्रेट ये है ना रेजिमेंट है, राइट, रो के अंडर आ रहा है, आप सबको पता है, तो मैं ज़्यादा बोलने की ज़रूरत भी नहीं है। तो ऐसे ही, और वैसे SFF का वीडियो मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगता है, और इतना है, और आप हम सब भाई बहन, एंड till then do whatever you want to do, don't trouble your mother, don't trouble your surrounding, and Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, Vande Mataram, free Tibet, and love you guys, see you soon.